Right. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
The aggressive pursuit of improvement. We back, tap in. You understand
Definitely.
me? Today we're gonna do expectations versus experience.
Yeah,
And
we doing mental verses, not music verses.
right. And here's what I want to say, man. This right here, you got me amped for this one because when you change the way I saw experience, made me think, man, we gotta talk about this because I done did this my whole life and I never looked at it. You
Right.
understand
When
me?
we said trauma is an experience,
Right.
right?
Once
Yeah,
once
yeah.
you once you put that in that way and say, you know what, you right.
Yeah, I
You
think all emotions
absolutely right.
are
You absolutely
registration or
right.
registered for experience.
Right. But
That's how you
everything
remember.
that we doing is experiencing it. But we done
Mm-hmm.
it so much that we don't even like, as we said before,
We don't acknowledge it.
right, we don't define it for ourselves. So like you saying, we gonna go back. But what's so dope about this right here is this is a eternal, this is a infinite reference point because
Mm-hmm.
I could always refer to this description. I can always refer to this definition. I can all because this right here, even though we gonna talk about it, it's still gonna keep unfolding. And it's
Yeah.
gonna keep unfolding. The more and more it sink into your mind, the more and more it latch in, it's gonna keep unfolding.
Yeah,
So
it's always going to unfold because your
right,
experience is relative to you,
right,
each
right.
person, their environment. So it's always going to be able
It's
to
gonna
be.
keep
Mm-hmm,
unfolding. So with
mm-hmm.
that being said, man, the quantum mechanics, man. Hey, let's do maintenance, man.
Yeah, dig it. Okay, so expectations. The definition for expectations is looking forward to, anticipating, and then next to that, I put anxiety because when you're anticipating something, you can kind of get anxious about it. So
Right.
expectations, again, looking forward to, anticipating a prospect of future good or
Right.
profit,
Right.
probability that something will occur, or statistics. So expectations is directly related to statistics. So
Okay.
that's why when you go buy a product, let's say from Amazon or something, you have a certain expectation. And what you do, you go down and read the reviews. The reviews are a form of statistics, consumer reports. It's
Okay.
it's it's
Hold
it's
on, real
giving you
quick, real quick. So right there, those statistics, those reviews is giving me an anticipation of
right.
of what this is.
Mhm. Yeah,
There we
okay,
go.
yep.
There we go.
Hmm.
There we go. There we go. So now I have an anticipation, like you said,
Right.
a form of anxiety of what my experience is about to be.
Right. And
Okay.
then next to that,
Right. Go ahead.
consumer report and reviews, I put people want to control your outlook and expectations.
Right.
Now,
Right.
whenever I'm reading reviews, I have to really go through them reviews because I don't know if this is the person or the
Mhm.
company like
Right.
doing dummy reviews and putting little feelers out there to make people buy the product, or if this is
Right.
actually a person that's saying, hey, I bought it, it was this, it was that, giving me their feedback on it.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
always taken back by that. But moving on with the statistics and expectations, there's
Yeah.
another thing called a mathematical expectation.
Okay.
And in a nutshell, the mathematical expectation is you dealing with the probability of being able to execute what it is that you're trying to do.
I got you.
Let's say you're trying to make a half court shot. The
Right.
mathematical expectation is that, hey, I'm strong enough to make this half court shot. I'm going to shoot it. But the actual expectation or the probability of you making the shot is one in a thousand, one in
Right.
10,000.
Right.
So that's a mathematical expectation.
Okay.
But mhm,
Hold on to that right there. Hold on to that right there. So
mhm.
that's why now the analytics of the game has emerged so much in things
Oh
of
yeah,
right,
basketball for sure.
right.
Yeah, that's
So
a good
that's
one.
like because so people be like the old school guys got analytics is silly, but the new school guys is saying what you saying. This is the mathematical probability that this will occur.
Dang, that's exactly right.
Right,
Analytics in
right.
basketball. I didn't even
Right,
realize that, bro.
right,
That's a good
right, right, right. I'm bagging
one.
what you're raking, man. Keep sliding, keep sliding.
Right.
I'm bagging
Okay,
what you're
then so
raking.
that's expectations, right? So we're gonna
Right.
move on to experience. Experience is a particular instance of personal encountering or undergoing. And then next to that, I put understanding. Same thing,
There it is.
undergoing or understanding.
There it is.
Something observing and undergoing things as they occur. Knowledge or practical wisdom gained
Mhm.
from what you have observed or undergone. That's what
Mhm.
experience is.
Okay.
Knowledge or practical wisdom gained from what you have observed or undergone. So moving past that, I was like, if expectations are statistics and looking forward to something, then expectations are also a form of diagnosis,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So I did the
Right.
definition for diagnosis.
Right.
The process of determining by examination the nature and circumstances of a disease condition. But we're not going to look at disease as disease. We're going to look at disease as a dis-ease or
Mm-hmm.
a discomfort or a non-syncing together of two functions of a person. A
Right.
disease can be, I'm sick, I have a cold, but a disease can also be a non-connecting point of a person that's uneasy,
Right.
where it's not functioning properly. And a lot of people have a lot of different dis-eases or things that make them uncomfortable.
Right.
Systems need to flow.
Right.
Electricity needs to flow smoothly. So
Right.
when things make you uncomfortable, you can consider them a dis-ease.
Right. Right.
So in that regard, that's how we're going to discuss diagnosis, because
Okay.
diagnosis is usually related to medical fields, but at the same time, a diagnosis can be applied to anything. You get your
Right.
car
Hold
diagnosed.
on.
So,
Hold on.
mhm,
That's what this is. We're doing maintenance. This is quantum maintenance. This is the altering of the perception. Like, okay, you
mhm,
could see it that way, or you have this much validity to see it this way.
mhm,
You can see it this way. You get what I'm saying? So
mhm.
yeah, go ahead. I'm just adding to that.
No, I'm digging.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. All right. So the
that's the
second part of
maintenance.
this.
The quantum maintenance is
Mhm,
we can always
mhm.
utilize this information for a different purpose. We can, as they say now, repurpose it.
Right.
We
Revalue,
can, we can
repurpose.
right,
Hmm.
right. We can revalue, repurpose, rebrand anything we get our hands on. You can do that.
Yeah,
The, yeah,
that's called sophistry. When
okay,
you change meanings, and you like rappers do that shit all the time.
right,
They'll
right,
practice sophistry when they're blending their rhymes together.
right,
It's kind
right.
of like a rhetoric, or yeah, it's revaluing,
They also
renaming.
call it poetic license. You got the license to do
Hmm.
this or do that, but you got the poetic license over your life as well. Go ahead, continue, my brother. But you right on.
All right. So the second half of this diagnosis, the definition is a determining or analysis of the cause or nature of a problem or situation. So a diagnosis is getting to the root cause or the root nature of the analysis of the problem.
Right,
So for the counterpart for experience, so if expectations goes with diagnosis, then experience goes with explanation.
mm-hmm.
Because when you experience something, again, it's a particular instance of personal encountering or undergoing.
Right,
So an explanation would fit right in line with experience, because
right,
explanation is to make plain or clear, or to render understandable, intelligible, to make known in detail, to assign meaning, to interpret.
right, right,
Now,
right.
whenever I saw that word render, I had to underline it, because render is very important. In
Mm-hmm.
alchemy, you have to have a stage where you're rendering it down and you're fermenting and you're breaking it down to its most
Right,
basic elemental portions. And
right,
from there, you can reallocate where these elements or essences are going to be moved to change what it is you're transforming.
right,
So
right.
that's important.
Right. Hold on.
And,
So right there, let me do it
mhm.
again. So right there, I see a lot. I go on the internet, boom, 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 boom. I'm doing whatever, right? And you'll see something, something, something. Could be anything. It's just for this instance. Let's say it's a car, and it'll say, "This is not the new whatever. This is a rendering," right? So this
Ah,
means that
mhm.
somebody is taking the aspects of the 1970s, whatever, and gave it aesthetics from the 19 maybe he gave it some aesthetics from the 90s, and then he gave it some aesthetics from the 2000s and created this new version. But it looks like the car, it looks like what the car would look like today, but it's a
Mhm.
rendering, right? So now
Right.
you have to take it from, right, you have to take it from the informational stage and then go ahead and put it in the actual materialistic stage, right? Like you saying,
Mhm.
so you taking it from maybe your thought patterns, now you render them down, right? To the lowest, whatever, for you to now bring it up to reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying
Look at this.
when you're talking your alchemical process, right?
Yeah, look at this.
Right,
And
right,
you
right,
just hit on something real good though, because you're talking about renderings and you're talking about stuff from the past being brought
right,
up to the future.
right,
You know what I look
right.
at? When
Yeah,
I look at movies, man,
uh-huh.
I love movies from the past, the 60s, the 70s,
Right,
because I'm gonna tell you this, because they aren't as graphically or vividly produced as they are today. Because
right,
today you could take something that would have had to been symbolically represented. It
right.
would have been, I was watching this movie, Red Dawn. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's an older movie. It's about America getting invaded. In a nutshell, it was basically a movie about other countries having a war on America's soil. And, you could
Yeah,
say, based on today's standards, that it wasn't made that well.
right.
But it was a good movie because it allowed me a chance to fill in the gaps.
Wait,
Old
wait,
movies.
wait. So now
Mhm.
when you say that, this make me see it because, like you said, when we started, this make me see this. You so basically in that form, those movies was a render. It was the lowest form. That once it was uploaded to your mind, you
Mhm.
could see it in the reality. You could see it for what it was because it was just a symbol of something. It was
Right.
so now you actually transmuted it to see it the way you can look at it in reality.
Exactly.
I
It
got
allowed me to
you. I
fill
got
in the
you. I got
gaps.
you.
But if
Right,
you look at
right,
these newer movies, everything is so graphically designed that there's
right.
no room for you to add your own imagination to it.
It's
But
no
again, mhm,
conceptual. It's no contextualize. You don't contextualize nothing. You
well,
don't
what I'm saying is
contextualize.
last time when we talked about how the hero sees everything as very
Right,
defined.
right,
And
right,
the villain sees everything for what it is. So
right,
if I can give you an image that is so defined, people, you know how we were talking about senses last time?
right,
I really feel, because I had a friend of mine tell me something. They was like, every person does 7 things to perfection, and it's your life's task to find out what those 7 things are.
right,
So that always kind of stuck with me, and I thought it was interesting. And I was like, is it based on my chakras? Do I have a skill for each chakra? Blah 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 blah. And I started thinking about what are the skills that I have. Well, I'm always mimicking people. I can
right,
mimic a walk. I can mimic a talk. I'm not be super Jamie Foxx at impersonations, but I always felt like I could mimic people. So if we were talking about all these different senses, temperature, chemical, pressure, touch, sight, hearing, then couldn't mimicking be a function of
right,
a sense?
right.
Because to be able to mimic something, that is like a natural function, and that's a part of this whole thing. So
Look,
when you out here,
look, look. When you say that, now you got to say, yeah, of course, right? And then say, well, what do you mean, of course? Look at a chameleon. That's a whole species of something that's
that
designed
mimic,
around mimicking.
that's exactly right. Now check where I'm going with
Octopuses,
this. Mm-hmm.
octopuses. Their whole thing is around mimicking.
Mm-hmm.
Their whole
Check where
existence
I'm
is.
going with this.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go
They
ahead.
want us to mimic the world that they give us. People
There
are
it is.
natural mimickers. Even when
Right,
you're an infant, a toddler, a baby, and you're being picked up, you are understanding the world not by talk. You're understanding the world by observing and mimicking on your scale to your
right,
degree.
right,
And that being said, people can control what you want and what your reality is by you allowing them into your world, and then you mimic what they're giving you. So let's say
look,
you're looking at the news.
go ahead, go ahead,
It
go
is
ahead.
a person's desire to create the world that they're seeing. On whatever scale, at whatever degree, you're gonna do that. So if
Right,
you say you live in a violent world and you seeing violence on the TV, then when you leave your house, you're gonna expect violence,
right,
and you're gonna
right,
create that world around you because Big Brother's coming into your home, and what it is mass hypnosis.
right.
What it is we're allowing people, because looking at this way, if you let somebody diagnose you, let's say you go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to the doctor for a diagnosis, then I'm opening myself up to this person and I'm focusing on this person, because hypnosis is an artificially induced state of that's resembling sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It's heightened susceptibility. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're asleep, your senses are off. You're not seeing nothing, you're not hearing
Right,
nothing, you're dreaming.
right,
So I think if you can suppress certain amounts of senses, then you can put a person in a hypnotic state. Now, how do you suppress those senses? Again, like if you go to a person voluntarily, to a doctor, and you say, hey, diagnose me, tell me what's wrong, then you're falling for their hypnotic suggestions. They're going to say, well, based on what you're telling me, I think that you have this going on, that going on, this going on. And then what do? You take that suggestion and you end up mimicking it. A lot of people don't even get sick until they know what exactly is going on, and then they started perpetuating and started bringing it forward.
Look.
So talking about memes are a form of mimicking, bro.
Right.
This is how they can control people. This is how they're hypnotizing people, because memes are ideas, behaviors, styles that are spread by a means of imitation.
Right.
When you see it, you want to recreate it in your own life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Look, let me say this, because I gotta back it up. Like you said, so we mimicking. Right? Think about this. A child, a baby is born. A baby is born. That baby don't know it speaks Spanish. That baby don't know you speak Spanish. That baby don't know you speak English. That baby don't know none of that, right? So you think, I learned English, or I learned what I consider to be English by listening to the people around me, but how do I know what this word means? I don't know. I just mimic what the people around me is doing, even down to an accent, even down to people say, oh, that person got a thick accent. Well, if everybody around them is talking like this, the person with a true accent from that place mimicked everything to the T. You understand me? Because before it could speak, it didn't have an accent. It didn't have overtones, undertones. It didn't have none of this, right? But it developed it through the mimicry, or whatever you want to say that word. You understand me? It continued to do it until it got it down pat. Boom. Now it's using a language that, not saying it's true or not, is using a language that it picked up, right? Because if I'm saying one word, right? If I'm saying food or eat, I think the Spanish word is comer, something like that.
Comida.
Yeah. So how did that become? Now I'm saying eat, you saying comida. How does this person know that that means eat? If from the beginning it has no information, right? So now it's associating it with what they're hearing, right? Right. So now they mimicking what the people around them is doing, because if that same baby was brought up in China, it would do it in Chinese. I mean, you get what I'm saying? Would do it in Mandarin. My bad on Chinese. You get what I'm saying? Wherever it could be, you could go get an Asian baby, bring it to France, and it will grow up speaking French.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because it will grow up mimicking that which is around it. I just wanted to say that based on like how you're saying how it's so impressionable mimicry.
Yeah, I mean the human brain develops under the impact of its environment.
Right.
Your parents are a major part of that.
What I'm getting at. That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Your parents are a huge part of that. Your parents are so important in creating that environment for you. But then if the parent can't afford to pay attention to you like that, then they end up leaving you in front of the TV, or they leave you in front of the cartoons. And then that allows someone else's to control to come in.
Right. This is what
because
I'm saying.
a child, we know what a child, we know something about the child before the child knows something about itself.
Right.
So you know what I mean? So it's up to us to impart what needs to be imparted on the child so it can develop into the proper thing. But if we're not doing that, if we're allowing the TV to do that, or if we do it to a certain point and then we give our child up to a coach or cartoons on Saturdays or whatever, if we don't consistently help develop the world that they're experiencing, then it's going to be problems. We're giving them up to something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But look, I'm going to say two things about that. When you say that, you're saying that some people think, spoiling a child or pampering it is good, but that's the worst form of neglect, right? Because it's like you're paying attention, but you're not. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
You're using something to satiate this child or this person.
Right. you're not building the right society. You building, you know, a lot of people, you know, a society should be based on what you do, meritocracy, based on the merit of your actions, you know. But these are just different ways of looking at the world and different ways, you know, of trying to categorize it and put it in a way that makes sense for us, you know.
And then the other thing I was going to say was, just like I'm saying, if the child came from Asia and then you dropped it off in France, if the mimicry didn't matter, then the child, even though it can't speak or nothing, it would develop in the Mandarin, but it doesn't.
Right.
It develops in the French, right?
But see, you can have a funky expectation of somebody just because you see them and they look a certain way. You can have an expectation that they'll sound a certain way, but they don't.
This is what I'm saying. So you will see him and you
the
be like,
normalcy bias.
Well,
That breaks the normalcy bias.
He's finna speak Mandarin and he speak French, and you be like, well, wait a minute, you look Asian. But yeah, that could be, but I was raised in France.
And look at this. Because we're so normalcy biased, we just assume that this person is this or that based on their exterior. Because I was saying that expectations are a form of cancer. Okay. They're a bad form in the sense that you could have all these certain expectations of how life is going to treat you and how things are going to go, but you haven't built enough skills to be able to respond to the various things that life can throw at you. So in that regard, you aren't fully prepared because you have a normalcy bias to things being normal or things being as you expect them. And you should never believe anything that's convenient. Just because it's convenient doesn't make it real.
Let me say this, like when you saying that normalcy bias and people expecting this, I'm gonna say this because this is really funny, right? So you see these people, these movies that come out, you get on internets and people be talking about, oh, that person should be black, that person should be white, this, that, and the third. And then you'll see same things. People say, well, color is, I don't see it. And okay, so then how come in movies, on TV shows, well, how come the dad can't be Asian, the mom be Latino, and the child be black?
I'm gonna say something on that. I think they're doing the interracial thing too much. Wait a minute.
No, I'm not even saying that. I'm not even going to go into the interracial thing.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying, we're not even going to go into that. What I'm saying is, if it could be, if you could turn on the TV and it's supposed to be something to be anything, then why do we expect the mom to be black and the dad to be black and this, that, and the third? When if it's all made up, why can't the mom be Chinese, the dad be Mexican, and the child be Filipino?
Well, art should imitate life in a lot of times.
But what I'm saying is that's a normalcy bias.
Right. Well,
because if the whole thing is made up, if we understand that this is elves or whatever, if none of it is real, why are we trying to hold on to some semblance of what's real?
Well, because I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying right there. But if you can control what's normal for people, you know what I mean? If you can create a new normal, if I could take what was normal and create a new normal and create some new things that are acceptable, you know, but you see what I'm saying? That doesn't make that it's right for us. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make that.
I'm not saying right or wrong for us. I'm saying if it's already fictional.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, you can control people. That's a form of control by giving them a new narrative. It's just like expectations can be cancerous. Mimicking can be a curse because that same skill or sense that you have to mimic will have you going out here mimicking the wrong things.
But
you see what I'm saying? If somebody gets 1 million views on YouTube, is it really 1 million views, or are they trying to control what we think about 1 million views? Be like, oh shit, this shit got 1 million views, and then you start giving it validation because you think 1 million other people have seen it, but really it's somebody behind the scenes manipulating your desire to want to follow that, you know, because they understand that through control, we could say that this is the new normal. Blue hair is the new normal. And you know, and that's how they control societies. So mimicking could be a curse because the society is bound to mimic. It's easier to watch something and then do it rather than read a book, discover how to do it, and then do it. I could watch Bruce Lee do a kick and then go in my room and practice it all night. And then I could probably learn it. It's easier and faster way of learning to mimic, but it's also detrimental. It's like I remember listening to Bobby, and Bobby was like, "Oh, I was an artist," and he was a tremendous artist, but he was only a great artist when he could copy. He could see the image. He could do really great portraits, really detailed portraits, but he wasn't creative.
Mm-hmm.
An artist who can only copy something perfectly, as opposed to an artist who can create something at a whim. See how mimicking could be a curse, because you could be a great artist, but you're not really an artist. You're just a superb copier.
Right.
And you can get stuck in mimicking. You can get stuck in living your life mimicking others. You can mimic your father. You can mimic your parents. You can mimic who you thought was successful in your life, but you aren't really, you're cursing yourself because you aren't really stepping out to understand that if this is right for you, you aren't actually experiencing it. You're just going off the expectation.
Right. But that's what you're saying. The sort of expectation is already dampening your ability to experience what that could be. You're dampening your ability to do something creatively because you've already put some level of limitation on your interpretation of the experience.
So
So
let's look at normalcy bias.
Right. So you're saying that I should only, when I go do this, only this, and this should happen, when the experience is limitless. It could be anything could be happening.
The known, the knowable, and the unknowable.
Right.
In the moment, it's unknowable. You just need to, be prepared through the knowing.
Right.
But if we look at normalcy bias, it's a quality or condition of being normal in general, economically, politically, and social conditions of a nation. And bias means a particular tendency or inclination, especially one that prevents unprejudices and prejudices conditions of a question. It's prejudice. Bias is a prejudice, right? So normalcy bias is you prejudging a situation that everything should be fine. That when I leave this store and I walk to my car, I'm going to enter my car and I'm going to go home. But really, there's somebody waiting on the other side of your car to rob you. But you don't even anticipate that as being an option because you're stuck in a normalcy bias. But you're not paying attention to the world around you. If you watch the news, crime is going up, people are getting robbed. So you should change your biased opinion on things being normal.
Right.
You should start
crime
looking at other.
Like you say, crime happening is normal, but you expecting crime not to happen is a normalcy bias.
That's a false expectation because you have to pay attention to the world around you. The world around you is constantly changing. So that's what I'm saying by normal.
The experiences are being adjusted faster than your normalcy bias is being adjusted.
Right. So by you not making these adjustments because you have these certain expectations and you are immutable. Remember, we talked about how the hero is immutable. You refuse to remove yourself from the definition of your life being this way for this type of lifestyle or whatever. But I think that's a result of everybody being under mass hypnosis. Mass hypnosis, hypnotizing someone is a self-induced or an induced state similar to sleep.
So wait a minute, right there. So when you say mass hypnosis, because even though we understand it to be, we have to put two on it. We have to put the advantage and the disadvantage on everything. You know what I'm saying? The advantage is, you understand me? You could see how everything is. The disadvantage is that is what reality is, mass hypnosis.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, reality is
the advantage is you can see the mass hypnosis. So that's where we at with the maintenance. You can adjust the way you are experiencing the hypnosis.
Right. The thing about it is when people aren't experiencing the hypnosis the same, when it's expectations versus experience, those end up being the reasons for wars, man.
Right.
Because my expectation of a culture and expectation of how society should function is my expectation. But I'm from India, and somebody from Russia is going to have a different expectation of how life should go because they're Russian and their cultures are different. So those two differences in cultures could stem off to all types of things, and those can end up being the causes for war. But let me because I did some stuff with the hypnotized, because I was like, memes cause you to mimic. So memes are a form of hypnotizing someone or society. Because again, reading the definition for memes or memetics, even if you look at the word memes, mimic, it's the same thing. Memetics, memes, idea, behavior, or style spread by a means of imitation, viral within a culture, symbolic representations of phenomena that carry ideas. That's what a meme is. But that's also what a good mimicking of someone does. It carries on that phenomenon. It carries on that idea. So that's what memes are. Memes are quick forms of hypnotic suggestions. And how is this it's a whole thing nowadays. Oh, you got to have a meme. You got to know how to do memes. It's a science to doing memes. And memes, remember how we were saying memes are the new hieroglyphs. It's a science to doing that. But how they're imparted on you, I wrote down like a quick little steps to hypnotize a person made easy. Your phone and social media are the focal points. These activate dopamine within you to put you in the proper state or a sleep-like state to receive the download. Whatever you are into creates the normalcy bias. So if you're into whatever you're into, the phone or the system is going to show you that, hey, what you're into got 1 million views. People are on it too. It's going to confuse you. Every person can be pinpointed through their phone, and every person can be individually, psychologically fucked. You know, and that's what they're doing. They're doing mass hypnosis, mass psychosis. A psychosis is a condition of the mind. So what they want to do is, if you give them access to your mind, if you go to the doctor and say, hey, I need you to diagnose me, if you go to your phone and say, hey, I need you to entertain me, then you are opening up yourself for the hypnotic suggestions, because that's what you're asking. You're asking for that. You're not filling in the gaps yourself. You're letting this highly vivid, detailed movie fill in the gaps for you. And that causes an imagination poverty. It impoverishes your imagination. It doesn't let you think beyond what your expectation is. The only way you can think beyond your expectation is to actually accumulate experiences by actually jumping off the porch, jumping in the mix, accumulating these experiences. And through these experiences, you can give other people an explanation of the situation, and they can better assess their position when they go make a move for themselves. That's what we're doing. Everything is paying it forward. Everything on some level is a hypnotic suggestion. From when your mother first picked you up to when you first started a job and you met a new guy at the job, all of these things are people hypnotically suggesting to you. And you're open to what you're open to based on your filtration system that you develop. You know what I mean? The things that you put in front of you as feelers for life.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So when we understand that this mass hypnosis, understand me, because for me personally, I have an issue with with what they are doing. You get what I'm saying? Me personally, not because of this, that, and the third, but because of the fact that if this can be used, then I can utilize it for myself. You understand me? So if somebody is using something against me, then I can always take that same apparatus and use it for myself. I don't have to use it against everybody. I don't have to weaponize it against whatever, but I can weaponize it for myself. Meaning, if I can understand that these all of these memes and all of these things can be used against me, then I can use it for me, right?
It's all about the agreements. Remember, we were talking about these are agreements
but what
that
I'm
you make.
saying is, once I have this information in my hand, once I have it in my hands, then I can always manipulate it for my result. I can always manipulate it for my advantage.
Because
Meaning,
you didn't agree to the initial presentation of it. You
what
didn't
I'm
agree to
saying,
that, how they was trying to give it to you.
what I'm saying is, once I get it, I can use it to what? So let's say you got algorithms, you got all of these things that's giving you all of this normalcy bias, giving you all of this.
Right.
You can go in there and make sure every once in a while you you put a video or you put a meme or you put something that for later on down the line for yourself. You just pop it
A
in. Boom.
self-diagnostic. You got to do
Right.
a self-diagnosis.
Right. You just pop it in there, pop it in there, pop it in
Mm-hmm.
there. And sooner
To
or
make
later,
sure that you're holding yourself accountable, because you can get
right,
swept away.
right,
Yeah,
right. Because
I
sooner or
got you.
later, even when you get lost into it, it'll pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of like, you know, a snap back to reality. Okay, boom, yeah, let me click on one
It'd
of
be
these.
like, hey, dumbass, be my name. Check
Right,
yourself.
right, right, right. You can
Check
always
yourself.
drop you can, like how they got in the ocean where they got them beacons that turn beep, beep, and you can always know where you at. You see what I'm saying? No matter how far down these algorithm wormholes you go, it's still going to pop up one of these things. It's still going to pop up um uh 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 uh, and a quantum physics lecture. It's still going to pop up. It's not going to pop up as much as, you know, maybe a movie trailer, right? But it's still going to pop up, right? So you can always use that to your advantage at any point in time because
Well, whatever you're
within,
into, whatever you're into is going to create that normalcy bias.
right,
And
right,
normalcy bias is your desire. Right. It's creating you a desire for something, or because you want to mimic and make the world that you live in like the world that you see. You want to make the world that you live in comfortable like the world that you're being presented. So when you have a normalcy bias of that desire coming from what you're being presented to as what's normal and your pursuit of it is going to create different dopamine releases.
Right.
That's something else that happens too, that keeps you self-inducing your own assisted hypnosis, because you're assisting them by every time you pick up your phone, you're welcoming in a reduction in your peripheral awareness. You're welcoming in something that they're going to give you to focus on. Now, you might actually click on the video or click on the article, but you're welcoming in this like this unending machine, you know, that's going to constantly give you what you want to see. It's going to constantly give you what it's going to constantly hypnotize you. And that's what it is. That's why everybody is thinking kind of like the same thing. It's
But
like
here's what I'm
it's
saying.
also confirmation bias too.
Here's what I'm saying. Even with that, if that is the case, if it could be used in that direction, it could be used in the other direction. So you can hypnotize yourself into not being hypnotized by this. Because you could use the same apparatus that is spinning you in one direction. It cannot be as plausible to spin it in the other direction because it would be using the exact same mechanics.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So in that same thing that's pumping you full of that, it could pump you full of the things that could reverse those things as well.
The thing is that they see what you see and we see what they want us to see. You know, the only way to get out of that is you have to like unplug from that, because that can end up being your reality because they see what you see.
But here's the thing. If it's being used to that capacity, why would you unplug when you could just alter the current?
Yeah. You can't alter it unless you know it, because you end up like
that's where we at. Now if we understand the dynamics of what it is that's happening to us, then we can alter the way we are perceiving it.
Yeah, we got the quantum, the functions of the mechanisms.
Right. So
therefore you got to believe none of what you hear and half of what you see now, because now we know the mechanism. So that's an old saying that can counteract that. Believe none of what you hear and half of what you see.
Right. Because
what you hear, that goes back to your eyes help you mimic, right? And then you
Right.
have what's that thing? It's a such thing. Remember, I was talking about narrative words, or when you watch the news tells you how to feel about the situation. They give
Right.
you these narrative, descriptive words to say how you and your home that's watching the news should feel about this situation. Oh, you should be
Right.
outraged, or you should feel like
Right.
this or that. But then also they have that neuro-linguistic programming where
Mm-hmm.
they can say certain things to bring on certain traumas that might not even be exclusive to you.
Mm-hmm.
But these trigger words and these trigger scenes, so you have scenes that you mimic through your eyes, and you have words that are told to you that trigger things for you. These
Right.
things trigger and control people. You know what I mean? So you can
Right. Right.
induce certain traumas on a person that has never been in a crime. It's like never have meeting a person, but you see a movie about their culture, and then you assume that that person is just like the movie that you saw.
Right. Right.
It's
Right.
like seeing Boys in the Hood and thinking that all black boys in the hood act like this.
Right.
That creates a normalcy bias, that creates a confirmation bias,
Right.
and that creates the expectations of people in their little world.
Right. Right.
And that's the big problem.
Right. Right.
That's the big problem with
That is
everything.
the big problem. But here's the thing: knowing this means that you can do it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So, just like we were saying, so if I'm seeing that's what I'm saying. So if I'm seeing that, that's what I was saying earlier. If I turn on the TV and if I know that this thing is plugging me in with all type of information, right? So to
Mm-hmm.
say. So then how come Boys in the Hood, right? If it's
Mm-hmm.
all this or it's all that, is TV, is whatever. Well, how come the mom, right? How come the
Mm-hmm.
mom wasn't Asian and the son wasn't
Because that's
black?
not that they're not trying to they want to
No,
project.
I'm just saying
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm not talking about
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing. I'm talking about if we know that this can be done this way, then
Mm-hmm.
then it can be used this way as well.
Right. Yeah.
You
You can say
understand what I'm
whatever.
saying?
You can start using that to your advantage too. But it's like we don't
Right.
we don't
That's
control
what
the
I'm
TV
saying.
stations to touch as many people. Like
Right.
we can't put it out there as far
This
as
is what I'm saying.
mhm.
I'm talking about what I can do myself.
Right.
If I see it, I can see it as, well, a boy in the hood could be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
For me to get over the normalcy bias of saying it's a black guy.
Yeah. It's all about the controlling of the behaviors of others.
But I'm
By
saying, even
mm-hmm.
though that's the case, I'm saying how I can do this myself for me.
Right.
You see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Because I'm still going to be within this reality. So even if I go out and I know that every person is not this person, I know every Italian is not a mobster. I
Mm-hmm.
know every Asian don't know karate. I know every
Mm-hmm.
black guy ain't a gangbanger. You get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. But
So
that comes from you experiencing that.
right,
You had to go live a life
right.
and come
That's
to those conclusions.
experience versus the expectation.
Right, right. Because your expectations, that I used to be caught up like that too, but you
Right,
have to go through, but see, that's us. We've
right,
lived. What about the
right,
new generation coming up that hasn't lived and
right,
refuses to listen to somebody? You know
right,
what I'm saying?
right, right.
So
This is
social media, man, social media is mental, social, cultural terrorism. It's
right,
social engineering. And again, it's playing into the expectations. And when you have these
right,
expectations, it really has no bearing on reality, bro.
right.
You can
Which
expect
is
a lot of things and
reality
prepare
is
for.
the experience.
Exactly, man. And
Right,
and the experience
right.
ends up being the explanation.
Right. So the experience tells me that every Asian doesn't know Kung Fu. The
Right.
experience tells me that every black guy is not a gangbanger. But my expectation is exactly the opposite of what the experience is.
Yeah, and you can't make people experience things.
Right,
They
right.
have to
So now,
agree to
right, right,
experience it.
right. So now when we say that, now then our what happens to me, when I see what you're saying, when I look at it, I say, okay, boom. Well, here is the expectation. Here's my experience. Now, my explanation to the person who hasn't experienced it is to get their perception as close to the experience as I possibly can, because I can't experience it for them.
Right.
So only thing I can do is verbalize, which now becomes my explanation of my experience, and I can just kind of pull their reality closer to the experience. But they still going to have expectations based on their normalcy biases, right?
Right. And the thing about it is you're putting into their mind the imagery and what they need to understand. So if you're talking to somebody, that person should be visualizing what you're saying. They should be able, even though they're working. See, that's the great thing about being, a human. I don't know. That's one of the things about it. I ain't gonna say it's a great thing. It is what it is. But for you to be able to imagine what they're saying, like I can listen to stories from people, and I'm not just sitting there listening. I have to put a picture to what they're saying. I have to delve into what they're saying and how you're explaining it.
Right.
And that's basically what you're saying. If I can explain something to you and get you close to it, you should be visualizing it to gather the same information.
Right. So look, now when we say that, let's get into this. So somebody will say, because based on what we just said right there,
that's improvisation.
Right. Somebody will say, okay, so boom. Now you're saying, well, how can I get them to visualize this? Now that's third eye viewing, right? Because what is third eye? We use three eyes. We use intelligence, we use imagination, and we use what's that damn word?
Intelligence, imagination, and
when I say what's that word that you feel? Intuition. Intelligence, imagination, and intuition, right?
Okay.
Intelligence is what I know, or like the past. Imagination is the future, what I'm trying to create with my intelligence. And intuition is how I merge those two together with what could be and what has happened.
That's a good one there, bro.
You understand what I'm saying? So that's like three eyes. That's my third eye. So like you said, so if I'm talking to this person, you're talking to this youth, right? I'm talking to this person, I'm intelligence. Now their normalcy bias and whatever they're seeing is imagination.
Right.
Because they can't know, because they haven't experienced it. I have, so I'm the intelligence here. I'm the intelligence between us two. They're the future, and they're the future interpretation of this experience. So they're the imagination. Right? So now my explanation of the experience is the communication between us is at this point should be an intuitive process.
Now check this out. You're describing who you are, but people take that and they use the media for that. And they use the phone for that, to tell them how to feel. They use the phone and the media as their intelligence. And then that shapes their reality. You know what I mean? Because you're not seeking information from a book or somebody who actually saw it. You're going to your phone. You're going to social media. You're going to the memes. You're going to all these things that can quickly give you a download, and then you mimic it, thinking that this is what the culture is on. But the culture isn't on all of that. We not everybody isn't on all of the stuff with the blue hair and the dye this and the tat. Everybody's not on that. But you can get disillusioned and drawn into a web of thinking that everybody is. So when somebody outside the country is looking at what you presenting and what you putting out, it's easy to assume that everybody in the country is on that madness. But that's not the case.
Right.
That's when you learn something, you define it. And you only know what you're lacking when you're aware of it. So,
right.
if you're not learning anything new, if you're only taking a copy of a copy of a copy, this shit then went viral. 1,000 other people done liked it. All you're doing is take a copy of a copy of a copy, or a rendering of a rendering of a rendering. But these renderings aren't leaving any space for you to fill in the gaps. The renderings are telling you exactly everything, how to feel, what you should do, every step to take. It's not allowing you to have that creative side where you can add to it. You're only copying what the other artists already put down.
Right.
You have to be able to draw your own conclusions, and you can't draw your own conclusion if every detail has already been drawn in.
Right.
That's
Now
like they used to have those movies.
That's you losing the intuitive aspect of it.
Right.
Because if I'm giving you your intelligence, right? That's what I'm giving. If I'm giving you the intelligence, like we saying, that's the knowable, that's the known. If I'm giving you your intelligence, you understand me? So I've already established the basis of what you know.
Right. Never believe anything because it's convenient, man.
So if what you know is this, whatever this is, if that's what you know, then I've already engineered your imagination. But that's what's in front of you, right? So you can't know what's in front of you. You can only imagine it. Now, if I've established what you know, right? And so now your intuition is you gathering information, because intuitive means you feeling it from inside. So I know this, now I'm encountering these. The presence is intuition. The presence is what's happening now. So now what I know and what's happening now, I combine those to create my imagination for what I think is going to come in front of me. What I'm anticipating this based on what I know and now what I'm encountering. If what I know is this and I'm seeing all the symptoms of this, then this is what's about to happen, right? You get what I'm saying?
Right. Look what I was looking at right here. Ideation, or the fact that you generate ideas, lack of ideation leads to poverty of imagination. So if you're not presenting yourself with ideas, then you're lacking in imaginative skills. And then I wrote right here, when you learn something, you define it for yourself. And then that's like those idioms. So when I read somewhere, whenever you see one 3 times, you can call it the thrice great one. So when you're studying Hermetics and Hermes, he's the thrice great one. So he's great times great times great. So when I learned that, it became a thing for me. So when I look at the clock or I see 3 ones, I always think the thrice great one, or 3 times great. So I'm saying that to say this. When I learned that, I ingested that and I agreed to that. Okay. So we're going back to agreements. Everything is based on agreements, man. Even before you come into this realm of existence, you agreed to be down here. You agreed to go through these things. So if an agreement is so critical and so important, I'm trying to get to the word. I need to look it up real quick. But if agreement is so important and so critical, what constitutes an agreement? Like, what says that I agree to something? Do I have to verbally say it? Or has the definition of agreeing to something changed? Like if I just click on your page, am I agreeing to it? See, because when you agree to it, you open yourself up for the hypnosis.
Look, check this out. So boom, when you say that, now we gotta look at this. Every time you click on something, it could be anything. What does it say? Do you agree to the terms?
Yes.
Like you click on that website and it pop up, bam. As soon as it pop up,
I'm going to the Black's Law Dictionary for this one, nigga.
As soon as it pop up, all the things you want to see is there. And as soon as you go to scroll up or down, then another joint pop up and say, before you can get involved, it popped up, right? It's there.
Right.
You understand me? Whatever you trying to do, buy sneakers, whatever, soon it pop up, it's there, bim, everything going on. And then before you can click on anything, another one pop up, bim, and say, do you agree to the terms of this website? You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Way before you can even get involved, it asks you, do you agree to this? It's just, yeah, we selling sneakers, but look, we selling sneakers 100 miles an hour. So if you ain't about this sneaker buying life, you need to slide.
Here it is right here. An agreement is the act of agreeing harmony of opinion or being in accord with someone, an arrangement between parties, usually resulting from a discussion regarding a course of action. So
Mm-hmm.
those an agreement is heavy business, man. You're saying that I'm in line with what you're saying, and I'm on the same page as you. Now, what constitutes an agreement? All these different things, whenever you click on something, in the back of your mind, you know that you're agreeing to it. So therefore, you're subscribing to it to a certain degree. Now, let's say if I click on something and I didn't really want to click on it, like that show Ridiculousness. I don't like that show because people are like always getting really hurt. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad when I watch it because I'm like, I don't want to see this stuff. But I agreed to it. So imagine a life of accumulations of agreements that you didn't really want to be a part of, but you agreed to them. And then you file them away as traumas or different types of reactions, and they build up on you. All these agreements. I think that's what karma is, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Karma is all of these micro, macro, micro agreements that you've come to throughout your life that you live in past lives, and all these things accumulate. That's like in certain philosophies, when you die, you go through the metempsychosis or the
Mm-hmm.
great burning fire that melts down everything into one singularity, one single drop of a combination of all your spirits and everything end up in this one singularity. And that's the metempsychosis. And that's the flavor or the rendering of the soul after you die. But
Right.
just imagine that the combination of all this karmic energy that builds up from agreements you've made. And if they can make you make agreements and you don't even know that you're making an agreement by clicking on something, then they're arresting your development, bro. They're in your
Mm-hmm.
mind. They're there. And we don't even know how important these things are, but we're just on our phones. We're just, making commitments and dialing in and using our phones and integrating ourselves into some type of Borg type of community. That's not even that's that metaverse. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm. But that's
It's
the
some type
thing.
of.
But that's the thing. That all of this is happening and all of this is going on. But now, to what degree of dexterity do you possess over this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality of it. Like, we know or we can see the disadvantage to it. But what we need to engineer is our advantages to this. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the case, if you telling me I can be hypnotized this quickly into something I don't want to do, then I can be hypnotized that quickly into something I want to do.
Right. That's kind of like what we was talking about the last episode, where
Right,
you're in a group of friends and everybody is calling out something different.
right,
You're looking around the
right,
room and you're calling,
right,
and you have
right,
to assess, is that person, oh, you have to see like, oh, I see what you're seeing. I see how it could look like that, but it's only a
right,
jacket sitting on a
right.
chair.
Now
So
that's the
Mhm.
pursuit of improvement.
Right. That's definitely. And there's another book that Panic talks about. I got it. It's called Cyclomancy, and it's like 1,001 techniques that you can use to hack your mind. One of the examples is get a bowl of hot water and get a bowl of cold water, and you put your hand in the water, but if it's the hot water, you tell yourself it's cold, and then in the same turn, if you put your hand in the cold water, you tell yourself it's hot. These are ways to suppress those senses. Remember, I was saying that like when your senses are depressed and you reduce the peripheral awareness, that's when hypnotic suggestion can take place. So you have to suppress your senses to take yourself into a sleep-like state, because you're not
Right,
you're not using all your senses when you're asleep. You're asleep.
right,
You're using a whole different set of senses. You're using those other senses we went over last
right,
time.
right. So look,
You're even
right,
using mimic. Mimic is a
right,
sense that you use when you're asleep because you're mimicking the world when you dream. You're
right.
reacting it out.
Look, so let's say this, right? So then if I'm hearing that, then I have to think on this. If you get a blind man, he said, I used to see, and then I went blind. Now I can see, I can all my other senses have been intensified, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then that makes me say, well, maybe when I'm coming into this reality from sleep, because we see that sleeping is some form of unplugging, some form of desensitization, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm being desensitized, right, when I go to sleep, right? So then when I come back into this reality from sleeping and I wake up, so when I wake up, I'm really plugging back in because
That's like the Matrix.
I'm plugged into all the senses. I'm plugged into touch, feel, whatever. But as people see, so now sometimes when people saying this, and I'm not saying this to that degree, but I'm saying this in a certain sense, when people be like, okay, well, this kid is autistic, or you got these savants, it's because they're shut off from certain senses.
Yes.
So they're unplugged to all of the sensationalism that goes on around them. So now they're just hyper focused because instead of using five, how many senses they say we use? Six, sight, see, touch.
Yeah, they've
Whatever.
hyper focused. They've hypnotized themselves into a state.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to worry. I don't have to think about. I'm not even thinking about my interpersonal relationship with the person next to me. But me being a person, quote unquote, that's normal, I think about this. But this person is not thinking about this. So that gives him an advantage over me in his ability, his ability to function at a higher capacity. Because I have to share all of my reality with all these senses.
Right.
He don't have to. This person don't have to share all.
He didn't make that agreement.
Right. He don't like, so a blind man, now that he don't see. So now he don't have to associate the color of a car with the way he feels about something. Like he might like the color red, but he never seen it. So he don't have to associate it with this. He don't have to associate it with that. He don't have to, you get what I'm saying? So now that's a whole area that's been cut off that now can be acclimated to a whole nother process, to a whole nother function that those of us who see, we can't access. Well, we can access it. Right? But we have to
I'm looking at it like this.
We have to find a scenario to turn it off.
When a scenario where it's applicable. But you said something major. You said you unplug when you sleep. You know what I'm saying? Right. So to be plugged in, check it this way. Remember the Matrix? Remember when the motherfuckers used to get plugged in? Right. They used to go into the Matrix and they had all their gear and they had all their stuff. Right. But then when they came out the Matrix, they took the plug out and brought us back to reality. Right. Go back to the hero and the villain.
Right.
When you're plugged in, you're living in a defined, idealized world.
Right.
A defined, idealized world that was created by Sun Ra, by whatever Nordic mythology or whoever created this world. You're living in their defined, realized world where you have to use your senses. But when you go to sleep, you unplug from this defined world and you go to the real world. Right. Where there's no definitions.
Right.
And you using all your other senses. Right. But when you're here,
other senses
when you're awake, you got to plug into the Matrix. When you're awake, you got to plug into non-reality that gives you certain senses that you can work with. And only the ones who are able to go beyond those limited senses can overachieve. Because are you awake? No, you're defined and plugged in. You're actually something. And when you define
like
something,
you just said, are you awake or are you hypnotized?
Exactly. Because when you define something, you limit it. So when the blind man doesn't see if the car is red or whatever, it's not limited.
Right.
It's not limited. When you plug in, you're limiting yourself. So when you plug into your phone and you go to YouTube, you're only going to get YouTube content.
Look,
so you're
right. So Bill, check this out. Let's just do this. Let's just do this. Since we doing this, let's do this, right? So boom, if my man, he can't see, right? So where we see it as, oh man, you got a disability, right? In this scenario that we talking about, he really has an enhancement.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Because he ain't got to look at what you look at.
Right.
I used to kind of envy blind people a little bit.
So guess what? I can't be manipulated through what I see.
Man, drop.
You see what I'm saying? So
I used to talk to this blind dude all the time, and I used to be impressed by what he said.
So think about this. So look at me. I can be manipulated by what I see. I can be manipulated by what I hear. I can be manipulated by what I taste, by what I touch, by I don't know. What's it? 5? What's the 5? Let's see.
All that, dog.
Give me the
All
5.
that.
Yeah. So
Believe
whatever.
none of what you hear, half of what you see.
Right. But now, if I'm looking at it this way, if I'm just looking at it this way, the man who can't hear, that's an upgrade. That's an enhancement. He can't be fooled by what he's hearing.
You own it, black man. You own it.
You understand what I'm saying? So the man who can't see can't be fooled by what he sees. You understand me? So
that's why, look, that's why in hero movies, you never see them boys eat. Right. In a real hero movie, he don't never have time to eat. You know why? Because eating could be considered weakness and a form of manipulation. Right. He's not going to show that in the movie. He's going to go to doing work. Or he's going to save
or when he being poisoned.
Exactly, because he fell victim to one of his senses. He fell victim to a weakness. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just like,
yeah. Go ahead. I'm just saying. Now it could be seen this way as well. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? It could be seen this way as well, because boom, if you tell me when I'm asleep, I'm experiencing senses from everywhere, but because when I come back to this reality, which is here on this planet, I'm coming back into an agreed upon thing, right?
Exactly.
I'm coming, but when I'm asleep and I'm out in the known, in the unknown, the abyss, there's not a unified presence.
No.
But here it is a unified presence.
That's that silver cord that's attached to your navel. So when you lucid dream, or you know what I'm saying, or you're in a waking state in your dream, that's that tether that brings you back to this reality. Right. You know, because a lot of people say that the gateway to, you know, death, sleep is the cousin of death, or the gateway into what you call the abyss. You know, some people might, it's a lot, you getting into some other stuff, but there's something that tethers you back to this reality, because again, before you even came down here, you agreed to be in that body and you agreed to live that life. Right. No matter what the conditions are. Right. You know what I mean? You agreed to that.
Right. So like you're saying, so now we here with our experiences and our expectations.
Yeah, dig it, man.
You come back here to your experiences and your expectations. Now, our experiences is the man, our expectations is the man with the blind man has got a defect. That's our expectation. But we went over an experience where this man has got an upgrade. If you look at, even when you talk about these superhero movies, right? The superhero with all of those powers, he has one defect.
Got to. There's something going, he got
to have a defect. You see what I'm saying? So we are all walking around with all of our senses, and so now you can look at the blind man as a superhero. You can look at the deaf man as a superhero, because he could tune you into a higher version of what's happening.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because he has the advantage.
And we do that shit also. We have to redefine. Once we learn things, we redefine it. And we could say we see colors when we hear sounds. You could say that. Once you realize what you're talking about, then you own it and you rename it, you revalue it, and you be like, man, every time I hear sounds, I see colors. Oh, that's red. Or however, that's how you have to imaginatively jump out there and manipulate and move pieces around like a puzzle board. You can move those pieces around because you are defining it, saying that I have an understanding of this and I want to call it this now. Exactly. Mind hacks.
Right. Exactly. Quantum maintenance.
You dig.
Right. Like we always say about this time, man. Stand by your work.
Always on time.
Right on.
Yeah, thanks for listening.